PFF is running one of their biggest sales ever. 40% off a PFF Plus subscription right now using the promo code BLACKFRIDAY. That means that you get everything fully unlocked. You get the grades, you get the stats, you get all the fantasy advice, the betting advice, which our new player prop tool is available on web as well to make you a smarter, better. You've got all of the draft analysis, the free agency analysis, all of that great stuff. Subscribe.pff.com to get 40% off a year-long PFF Plus subscription. Get it now. Okay, next game we're talking about here, Chargers and Jags. Ooh, man.
Ugly.
The injury report just caught up to the Chargers, I think, on this one. And maybe the cross-country travel as well. But Jags win it, 35-6. Big win for the Jags, getting back on the horse here. Their top 5 graded players, offensive guard Ezra Cleveland at the top of the list with a 90.5, tight end Johnny Munt with an 89.5, wide receiver Jacoby Myers an 81.9, edge rusher Josh Hines-Allen with an 80.2, safety Antonio Johnson a 79.5, and then Trevor Lawrence in this game a 57.8. On the Chargers side of things, cornerback Dante Jackson with an 80.2, safety Derwin James Jr., 74.3, offensive tackle Trey Pipkins the third with a 71.0, wide receiver Keenan Allen with a 70.9, cornerback Benjamin St. Juste a 70.0. Then Justin Herbert in this game struggled. Felt like the offense just as a whole completely did. 53.0 was his grade there. Stat that told the story, Dalton. What do we got?
Struggled, and they were hardly out there, Trevor. When you look at the Jaguars
holding
the football for almost 38 minutes, 37 minutes and 55 seconds, the Jags had the ball in this game. This was a crazy stat to me, too. How about the Jags running 69 plays? 30 of them picked up first downs. 30 first downs on 69 plays. I mean, you talk about ball control and possession. And look, Liam Cohen did this at times last year with the Bucs, where it was kind of this modern ball control offense. That's how this worked in this game. Even without Brian Thomas Jr., even without, obviously, Travis Hunter, they just found a way to just possess the ball. It felt like every time you looked up, Jacksonville had the ball again, right? And the Chargers, there's other issues we have with them, but much like the Lions, I talk about running the ball and getting to that cutoff. When the Jaguars run for 100 yards, they're 5-1. 192 rushing yards in this game, second most of the season. 10 missed tackles forced on the ground. ETN and Bashal Tutin were running really well. That was a season high, those 10 missed tackles forced. So I think you look at this Jags team, this is how Liam Cohen wants to win ball games. It's physical. There's different personnel packages. They maybe they don't have just a whole lot of vertical in this passing game right now without Brian Thomas, but They are making it work. Jacoby Myers making a bit of an impact after the trade a couple weeks ago. And the Chargers on the other side of that, you're going to talk more about this and why, and we already, pretty much anybody who watches the show knows why the Chargers can or will struggle on offense, but they don't have a way. You talk about their offensive line, and the obvious is, oh, well, Justin Herbert's getting hit all the time, right? Mm-hmm. That's the obvious thing you say with a bad offensive line, but the other issue is you don't have a way against a team like this that's taking possession over early in the game. You don't have a way to play that ball control style.
No, you don't.
Because you're not run blocking either, right?
Yeah.
You can't run the football,
right.
and you're too predicated on now we're playing this ball control team, and we got to hit home runs to match them because they just hit 6 singles in a row to score, right? It becomes just a structural issue in your offense where you're so reliant on Justin Herbert to carry you and just continue to hit home runs every week, and it just didn't happen. Liam Cohen coached a great game. The Jags were the more physical team really on both sides of the ball, and the fact that they ran the ball well, as we've talked about with Detroit and Carolina and the Bills and so many other teams, when the Jags run the ball, they're a good football team. They just don't have a whole lot of vertical to it in this offense, but they didn't need it in this one.
Yeah, the best way to stop a quarterback is sometimes just to keep them off the field, and that's exactly what Jacksonville did. And even when Justin Herbert was out there, I mean, I felt like he was doing all he could do, but he was their leading rusher on the team with 21 yards on 3 carries. You know, Kamani Vidal had 5 carries for 13 yards. I mean, it's just, like you said, there wasn't any balance for what the Chargers were doing. They were behind on the scoreboard. They were behind on time of possession, so you didn't really want to run the football because you got to speed things up a little bit. But when you speed things up, the Chargers offensive line was giving up a 40% pressure percentage, which was the 3rd worst of any team in the NFL this week. When it came to impact run blocking, they had a 30% impact run blocking percentage, which we've talked about here on the show. That means anytime that a player earned a positive run blocking grade, they had a 61.5% defeated run blocking percentage. So that's worse, right? It's not just because, like, we can sit here and talk about, okay, well, they've got a lack of explosives, right? They're not as explosive as they need to be. The issue with the Chargers is they've now got more negatives than even neutrals. That's a major issue for what is going on here. 61.5% defeated run blocking percentage. That means that guys are gaining a negative play, a negative grade result on 61.5% of their rushing snaps. That's never going to get it done. 59.4 pass blocking grade, 54.6 run blocking grade. It's just hard. It's a hard recipe to win, no matter what. So Justin Herbert struggled, the run game struggled, the offensive line struggled, everybody struggled, and it felt like the Jags really took care of business. I think at Bayshore Tootin, I talked about this with Sean Tucker with the Buccaneers, juice, right? Getting some juice in the backfield there. I thought he played very, very well. 76.4 rushing grade, 74 rushing yards, 5 missed tackles forced, and going back and watching all of his rushing attempts, I loved when they were running inside zone. And when they allowed him to sort of feel that flow of the offensive line and specifically always have that cutback option against the grain to go to the other side. When everything's flowing to the right, can you put your foot in the ground and can you go up on the left side of the line of scrimmage if the space is there? And I felt like Bayshore Tootin always read things much better when he was at Virginia Tech and when he is in the NFL, when you give him that freedom, when he is reading the flow of the offensive line. So outside zone, inside zone, mid zone, I feel like that is a recipe for Bayshore Tootin to break off some pretty big runs like we saw him do when he was at Virginia Tech. And we saw a little bit of a glimpse of that this past weekend. So loved that and wanted to shout him out there. Of course, had to shout him out because he was on the thumbnail.
Yeah, you better have.
Yeah, right, right. Had to make him one of my most impressive.
We couldn't have him at the top there and then just not get through this game.
Had to do
mention
it.
Him.
He deserves it.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I mean, and I'll tell you what, how good do the Jags feel about that Tank Bigsby trade? They've got Tootin producing, and they got 2 day 3 picks for Bigsby, and you've got ETN and Tootin both running really well in this game. I think the other point about the Chargers now, the problem is if you're going to have games like this where you're going to be the less physical team in the trenches, whether or not the Chargers make the playoffs will be a question down the line. They're in right now. They're 7-4, I think it is, right?
Chargers?
Yeah.
Yes.
The problem is there's going to be a hard cap on this. Even if they make the postseason, they have the lowest graded offensive line in football now. Below Cincinnati, below Cleveland, below Miami, all of these, they're the dead last now in offensive line grade. There's only so far you can take that. Now, credit to Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh, the coaching staff, everything, if they can make the playoffs, but it just feels like that's going to be the thing that prevents them from being a prime contender in the AFC.
Brian's pointing this out in the chat. The stat that matters, 1. 1 penalty on the Jags.
Good stuff.
1 penalty for 5 yards, too.
Wasn't that an issue for them in recent weeks before this one, too?
I'm pretty sure. When I checked this, I think 2 weeks ago, they were the most penalized team in football.
That'll do it.
1 penalty is excellent. That is awesome. Really good shout out there by Brian because I absolutely agree with that. Most disappointing was just the Chargers run game there for me. But anything else on this one?
Speaking of good offensive lines, how about Ezra Cleveland at left guard for Jacksonville here?
Top of the list for him, grade-wise.
85.9 pass blocking grade, no pressures allowed, 84.7 run blocking grade. How about 14 positively graded run blocks? The only 2 guys who have had more in a single game this year were both Penei Sewell and Tate Ratledge in Week 3 against the Baltimore Ravens when the Lions ran all over them. Just a dominant effort in multiple different concepts from Cleveland. The Jaguars had 138 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns when running off the left side of their offensive line. Cleveland was the biggest reason for that. A dominant effort up front. Looks comfortable in that system now.